So, I've avoided for as long as I can trying to make this video because I felt like in the aftermath of everything that's happening in the world, there were people much better equipped to talk about these things, whose voices were much more important to be heard. And just because I felt like I wasn't the right person to talk about it. And to some extent, I still feel like that, to be honest. But last night, I had a dream. And I'd like to clarify that it was just a dream, thankfully, that it scared me, man. It scared me, and it shook me awake, literally and figuratively. And I felt the need to say something. And the conception of this channel from the beginning has always been that I'm never going to say anything if I don't believe it to be true or necessary, if I don't feel like I can add to the conversation. And I don't know if I'm going to add to the conversation, but I know that I needed to say it for me. And maybe it'll be helpful. I remember after the George Floyd death, the lynching, I was driving my car down the road, and I was driving the speed limit, and for the first time in my life, I slowed down. I slowed down because I looked down at my hand and I saw the color of my skin, and for some reason, I felt, I don't know what I felt. I guess I felt kind of scared for a second, and I just slowed down. It was a minute. And that's never happened to me before. And in that moment, I felt like this weight on my skin that I'd never felt before. And by weight, I don't mean like a negative weight. It was just something that I realized for the first time. I'm like, oh, my skin isn't the same as other people's skin. Like, oh, that's kind of weird. And I slowed down because I wondered for the first time ever, I wondered, when I walk in a room, do people see my skin before they see me? And I never had that thought before. I would like to say I'm very, very fortunate and blessed that I've never had to deal with racism in my life ever. I've never walked into a room and made to feel less because of my skin. No one's ever thrown remarks at me. The closest I got actually was when I was a kid. We went to a movie theater once, and my dad asked some kid. He was a kid, right? He must have been, 17, 18 years old. He asked him to fill up the popcorn bag a little more, and he mumbled something under his breath about Indians, and he laughed to his friend, and in that moment, I wanted to break his face. And my brother pulled me away, and he said, "It's not worth it, man. It's not worth it. It's not how you win." And that was it. But it stuck with me, I guess. And still to this day, I think about it and I get mad, but hey, I mean, that's it. That's the extent of my experience, and thank God for that. But last night in the dream, and I don't want to go too deep into the details about it because it was a horrific dream, but I got called out because of the color of my skin, and then I got attacked, and I lost. I didn't survive that dream. And they were there, people were there, and they were watching. And I lost. I got killed. And that got me thinking that, man, that happens in real life. That's people that had to lose their life because of the color of their skin. And it just shook me. Because when I look at my skin, I don't see a servant. Though that's part of my history. I don't see someone who is lesser. I think of kings and queens and spice and culture and dance, and I take great pride in my skin. I take great pride in it. But it made me wonder, do people look at my skin and see servant? And it's absurd to me because in my good fortune, I've never had to deal with that. And yet, anytime I've come close to it or approximated it, it's been other people who share my skin or other people of color. And I get it. Because we all share the same history of scarring We all share this common history of being told we were less. And so we fight each other, trying to prove each other that I'm the better one than you. I'm less colored than you. And so we fight each other and we cut each other down. And it's a terrible thing to do. And it's exactly what the people who implemented this idea wanted from us, to fight amongst each other. And it's ridiculous that it still happens. But I get it, because we all share the same scarring. And in terms of my relationship to people who are colored, white people, again, I've had great good fortune, but I've had a very simple rule on my life. If you don't treat me like the servant, I won't treat you like the master. Which means I won't blame you for the sins of your father if you don't look at me the way people not that long ago looked at my people. Because you're not my enemy. And in my life, I have endeavored to treat people with love and respect. Because from what I see and what I've surmised, the only way to get people to change their mind, it's not violent revolution, it's not argument, it is conversation and love and debate. And it can be heated debate. But to tell someone that everything they believe is just wrong and disgusting and all this, it doesn't work, even if it's true. It doesn't work because it just puts their back up against the wall and then they don't want to talk. And you can't change the mind of someone who doesn't want to talk. And it's unfair. It's not right, but it's true. So long as I walk around the world and I tell everyone, or I tell someone that, oh, they're this and what you believe is this, even if it's true, they won't change their mind. They'll just go into hiding and they'll shake their head and they'll nod and they'll agree. And then when they raise their kids, they'll raise them the same way. And then my kids have to deal with it again, so it doesn't work. But if you're willing to talk to them with love and compassion and respect, even if they don't deserve it, maybe you can change their mind. And maybe if we stop telling each other, maybe if we stop telling each other that there's something wrong with us because of the color of our skin, if we stop giving weight and strength to this narrative that we're lesser because of the color of our skin, then maybe it'll stop feeling like it's true sometimes. When I raise my kids, I'm not going to raise them to think that their history started with oppression and just got us to where we are now. We didn't start with that. We started with thousands of years of culture. We started with kings and queens and a sovereign nation. And that's who we are today. And the fact that we're here is evidence of the fact that we are explorers and we are worthy. You know, maybe part of my good fortune is that my parents, when they were very young, they left India. They left. And they traveled the world to some extent. They lived in Korea and Japan, and that's where my brother was born, and that's where I grew up for a little bit. And when they went to these countries, they didn't see the world through the lens of race. They didn't have to contend with it. They saw cultures, but those cultures were accepting of them, and they felt like that. And so when I was raised, I wasn't raised to see that or to think that way. But it's become clear that people do see it that way. And you have to contend with that. And I'm not sitting here as some victim of anything. I've experienced nothing. But I'm aware that it's true. But it's time we stop treating different as less or more. I'm tired of my own people trying to be more like other people. Because that's the narrative that they've heard all their life. It starts with us, man. I'm not trying to be I'm not trying to be like you. I'm trying to be me. And everyone who knows me knows, God, I have an ego. I have a big ego. Because I feel like I can do anything. And there's nothing that makes me more mad than something or someone trying to tell me that I can't. But what do you do? What do you do when the thing that makes you feel like you're less is on you? It's part of who you are. And the narrative that we perpetuate, I take responsibility. I don't know how to solve the world. I don't know how to solve race relations. I'm definitely not the flag bearer of racial justice. I know so little about it. I only do the work that I can do as an individual. And since everything that's happened, I'm trying quietly in silence to understand what I think about race, how I've experienced it, what do I feel, what does other people think. But let me tell you one thing. I am no less than any other man. And I'm very, very proud of that. But this narrative that is perpetuated in my culture and from what I see in many culture of people of color, that we are somehow lesser because we are not the Western world, or we are not of the Western world, or we speak with an accent, or we value different things. That narrative has to stop, man. Because until we keep seeing ourselves as second to someone else or something else, we're never gonna get out of this. And I don't blame the world out there today. I blame us and I blame me. I blame us for it. Because you know what? We have the means to own our own narrative. So let's rewrite it. Let's stop treating each other within our own culture like that. Let's stop telling ourselves that we come from a history of oppressed people. Let's rediscover our history. Because look, I know, and I'm angry too, man. I'm angry about what happened. But those people are gone. Those people died hundreds of years ago. Maybe not hundreds, but not that. Most of them are dead, is my point. And I get it. There are people who still perpetuate that thought process, but that is the minority. It is a vocal minority, but they are a minority. The majority of people aren't like that. And you know what? Even if they are out there, they don't get to control how we feel about ourselves. That's on us. And I refuse to teach my children that there's anything wrong with their skin or that their history is one of oppression, and that's it. I take responsibility for my skin. I take responsibility for the hundreds and hundreds of men and women who had to die, who had to commit their lives and be willing to die to let me sit here and talk to this camera today. They were my age, man. They were my age. They were like 20, 22, 25-year-old kids. And they committed to freedom, the idea of freedom. They committed to that to the point that they were willing to walk straight into gunfire and not hit them back because they believed in the ethic of love and conversation and demanding change. And I can only hope that I am ever 1/100th of the people they were. And I can only hope that through my words and through what I try and do with my life, I can prove and I can be an example of what this skin represents. And that it is a badge of great pride for me. And that the way I fight racism is by trying to be the baddest man who ever lived. By trying to do what seems impossible. That's how I fight it. And that's all I know. And maybe it's ignorant, and maybe people disagree with me, and maybe I'm not saying all the right things that someone's supposed to say, but I'm telling you what I feel because I had to say it. Because I hope I'm never in the situation I was in that dream. And I hope that no one ever is. But they are. It's just the reality of the world. But it doesn't have to be the reality. And we can shift that. We can do it through talking to each other, talking to people who disagree with us, talking to people who we disagree with on every fiber of our being, but talking to them. Because if you don't talk to them, you're not going to change what they think. You can cancel them. It's not going to work. They'll just go into hiding. They'll come back. They always do. And I can only hope the next time I'm driving down the road and I become aware of my own skin, I don't slow down.